Alright, same as usual, just be a minute or so while I'm looking for something to talk about.
Oops, that was an accident.
Okay. Just making sure that we're reloading when we're doing like kind of a rotation like that. Very good, nice shots. Okay. Oh, focus the breakers on the ground like right there. She was stunned because she had pinned up against the Reinhardt, so there we could have probably killed her pretty easily.
Okay, not gonna let this Ryan go alone to fight the Winston.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Move up here. Excuse me for dropping. Oh, excuse me.
Nice shots.
Uh-oh. I need heals? Oh, I pressed the wrong key.
Make sure that we're attempting to use cover there, as well as the fact that so we were standing on the open, and then also request healing a little bit slowly. And then besides that, not a ton there. Maybe I would say we focus on the monkey like for a little long during that fight, whereas we might have wanted to go to prioritize a different character.
Hey there.
Oh no.
Moving up.
Just what the doctor ordered.
Oh no, my aim. Oh no, my aim.
Now, hold on. Much better.
Alright, so obviously just missing shots, missing flashbang,
Yeah.
and then on top of that, just make sure we're not walking out ahead of like our Zarya. Let her walk out in front of us, and that way we're letting her take space and tank
Back
for
in
us
the
instead of
saddle
just walking
again.
out in the open where we get domed by Zenyatta.
Okay, got it.
Adaptive circuits engaged. Diva. Amplifying forward shield.
Easy.
Oh, he defense matrix it.
No, this. All systems. Diverging personality. Echo online.
I can't take down two air-based characters
Not a
alone.
chance.
Oops.
Payload stopped. Something broken?
Nice shot.
Very nice. Go for the flashbang in the break there, right? Just make sure we're going for it. Okay. We also have now gone 2 fights without our ultimate, so we want to make sure in this next fight that we're actually utilizing it. We're not just kind of not using it, right?
Yeah, I want to use it on the Pharah.
Yeah, we can also use it on the Echo too, as an option.
Oops. Oh my god, I really suck.
That might have been a perfect moment. So there, like while they're on the bridge or right when you're on the high ground, probably would have been perfect moments to go for high noons because they just have no cover at all in which they could have used because they're all out in the open, right? You know, we've talked about. You know, we discussed. I imagine last time we discussed good usage of cover is. Or sorry, good positioning is the usage of cover, whereas bad positioning is the absence of cover. And that exact same point applies to the enemy team too. So we want to be ulting them when they're out in the open and not having cover, right?
All right, yeah, got it.
Yeah, very nice.
Fixing you up.
It's high noon. Who's got it?
Okay. In that situation, if you're going for the Pharah, like just the Pharah, there's no reason to be that far out of position to do it, right? Now, if you're going for more people than just the Pharah, which would probably be advised to try to look for as
Not
many people as
time to
possible
fold
with
'em
it,
yet.
then maybe you can go for an angle like that. But there we just like only went for the Pharah and that's it. So maybe look to go get the Pharah and the Echo at the same time if possible, or look to, you know, get more value than just one person, because, you know, one pick with an ultimate is okay value, but it's not fantastic.
Unstoppable.
Jag fixar det.
Thank you.
Oh, I just ran into that.
Much obliged.
Clearing the area. Damn it! I've got you covered. My barrier's about to go.
Alright, make sure we're not rolling straight into danger and just watching for the damage that's coming in, using cover. And then on top of that, or I guess that's pretty much the main point there, is that we just end up dying because we just rolled straight into the
Back in
fray, right?
saddle again.
Yeah.
So make sure we keep in our distance a little bit there.
I just wanted to pick off the Echo from my team so they're able to win the team fight.
Yep, but going 1-for-1 is a terrible on DPS, right? Because you're essentially doing absolutely nothing, right, when you go 1-for-1. So that means that we want to be staying alive, and it's better to prioritize your life than it is to get one kill.
Oh my god,
Rally to me! Let the dragon consume
can a Zenyatta ultimate out heal a Hanzo Dragon?
They output basically like a very similar amount of damage to where if you add in extra damage on top of the dragon, then you can kill people through it.
Okay.
60 seconds remaining.
Okay. I've noticed a lot of times we end up being like down people and we kind of keep going in, and then sometimes that's called the stagger. So make sure that when we're down a bunch of people that we're kind of backing up and grouping up, especially like when we already have high noon and we don't need to poke at all, right? Make sure we're requesting healings. We're not just sitting at 70 HP.
I did it twice. Yeah.
Need healing.
Oh, I didn't.
Oh yeah,
I didn't hear
it sometimes it doesn't like hear it, but like it's just.
Activating self-destruct sequence. I'm sending up. My ultimate.
Oh, excuse me.
Nano boost administered. 10 seconds remaining.
In that situation, probably could have kept on getting aggressive there because there's only 3 people. You were it's such a massive advantage, and on top of that, they were all purple and 1 HP. So that's a situation where maybe we could have kept getting aggressive.
All right.
Flash the monkey.
Yeah, I was pressing E there. I just got shattered.
Resting.
Yeah, so before that point,
From above.
preferably.
I'm on fire.
Okay, have our ultimate. Make sure we're looking to use that again. All right.
Alright.
For this next fight.
Hold on, I gotta check something. All right.
My ultimate is charged. My ultimate is charged.
Oh no, it's like a really bad spot.
Adaptive circuits engaged. Diva.
Get in there.
Fire at will. Nerf.
Oh, nice grab.
All systems. Reverting personality. Echo online.
Group up here. Group up with me.
60 seconds.
Form up here.
Hey.
I wish I
Join me.
Sorry, please listen.
Last time, did we go over how to tell whether or not you won or lost the fight?
No, you
No?
didn't.
Okay, so then we can talk about that after we're done here.
enemy contact.
Payload's moving out. Keep it covered. No. Move back.
Don't move.
30 seconds remaining.
Not have time to wait. Attack now.
Oh, no.
Justice reigns from above.
All right, watch the spam jumping. Okay, we're gonna talk about a bunch of different things here, so you don't, yeah, don't hop into a queue just yet. So I'm going to be streaming if you'd like to take a look.
Sure.
So first off, watch the spam jumping, as spam jumping can just make it easier for people to headshot you. You also lose control over your mobility. And then finally, this is also gonna make you very, very loud if you're trying to go on a flank like you were doing, right? Instead, you're going to want to crouch to mute your footsteps, and even if you're trying to go a little bit faster, you can crouch spam, where you're moving and you're crouching in like this kind of, but you definitely don't want to be just normal walking while jumping, as people can hear that very easily, right? On to other points here. Last time, did we talk about screen shake, like you kind of your shaky aim at all last time?
Yeah, did it did it improve or no?
Well, I can't particularly remember because it has been a long, a couple weeks here, so I can't recall how bad it was last time, but I still end up seeing it here. So that
Double kill.
did we talk about like lowering your sensitivity at all? Have you ended up doing that, or like what was your sensitivity
Yeah,
at?
I did that. I
Yeah.
did.
Mm.
It was really like high before.
And what's that at currently?
Okay.
Double kill.
Okay. 400 DPI. 10 point now.
Okay, so that is. Let me check that real quick. I believe that they shouldn't be too high if I'm doing that math in my head correctly. Times 10 point. All right. So that's not too bad. Okay, so that's actually doing a lot better. So with the sensitivity wise, but I definitely still just work on keeping your aim smooth. It does appear very shaky as well. Onto other topics, right? How to tell whether or not you won or lost a fight, because there's been a couple instances where that came into play. So basically, how to tell that, right? Big thing is to pay attention to kill feed. Kill feed's the top right corner of your screen. When you are up 1 to 2 people, that is going to be an advantage, right? When you have an advantage, you can play more aggressively, right? You can go in and push in further because they have less people to contest you, right? When you're up 2 to 3 people, now that's where you have basically won the fight, right? At that point, you want to get super aggressive, go in and continue to push them, get right up in their faces, just because you've already won that fight. You also don't want to use ults in that instance, right? Now, this also goes the exact opposite way. When you are down 1 to 2 people, that is a disadvantage, right? You haven't lost the fight yet, but you're losing the fight, so you might want to play a little bit more passive, right? And then when you're down 2 to 3 people, that is when the fight has been lost, and that's where you want to look to get out and group up with your team. You want to, if you cannot get out, then you let them kill you, and you also don't want to use ults, right? So that's pretty much it in terms of how to tell that. Now, there were a lot of instances where we would, like for example, one of the times where we were down 1 person and we decided to completely back out of the fight, right? And we were like going, Zarya, back out with me, right? And we were only down 1 person, in which case, right, that's not necessarily a lost fight. When you're only down 1 person, that's just a disadvantage, right?
No, the diva like bombed 2 people, or like the echo imitated the diva, and then the
yeah. So you were down 2 people, but you also got a kill, right? And then that means that it evens out to being down 1 person, right? So we're talking about the kills, right? It's not just how many kills do we have, it's contrasting to each other, right? So for example, if they get 3 kills and we get 2 kills, we are down 1 person, right? Or vice versa, right? So does that make sense in terms of how to estimate that? So if we were if our team got 4 kills and then the enemy team got 5 kills, right? That means that we would be losing the fight, right? Or at a significant disadvantage, right? Just because they got more kills than us, they're up a person, right? So it's a 2v1 then in that instance. So, that's just how to tell. There are also a lot of times where we would end up not backing up fully when fights were lost. Now, you definitely can poke a little bit when fights are lost, but definitely don't try to do that when you have our ultimate, because there's no reason to poke when you have your ultimate already, because a lot of times just poking and shooting at them is for ult charge. And then the other thing is just we would end up pushing it forwards pretty far when we're doing that. So make sure that when you the fight's done and over with and you lost it, that you're backing up and not staying in there, because there are a lot of times where we stayed in there and then we would end up dying, or teammates around us would end up dying because we stayed in there. And then also make sure we're not walking back into fights that we've already lost, right? So, or when we're down a bunch bunch of teammates, right? Because if you're walking back into a fight when you're down 2 people, right, that's essentially walking into a fight that you've already lost, right? So we don't want to end up doing that. So that's just a bunch of things there to feed into that, right?
All right.
Moving on, let's think about a couple other things here. What else was there to talk about? Did we talk about, or so ultimates, right? Ultimates is a big thing there. We, in the course of like 6 fights, used like 2 ultimates, right? That means that we had a rate of like 1 ult, or maybe even more than 6 fights, right? That's roughly the rate of like 1 ult
Yeah.
every 3 fights, right? Which means that we used.
I feel like I'm like
Mhm.
I feel like I feel like I have an ability to identify when I would be able to use Deadeye, because like I can use every other ultimate like well. I just have an inability to identify when to use Deadeye specifically.
So in what sense would you say that you're having trouble? Are you having trouble knowing when you can use it safely without dying, or are you having trouble knowing when to use it to actually secure kills with it?
Triple kill.
Both.
Both. Okay, so let's talk about that for a bit then. So first off, I guess let's talk about the timing, and then we'll talk about that. How you can actually get it off. So timing wise, just make sure we're not first off not holding onto it, but then also using your ult first, because ults that are used first generally get more value than ults that are used second. Right? We don't want to we want to be using it beginning in the fight, and then that way we don't end up just losing the fight before we get a chance to use our ultimate. So moving on to how to get off our ultimate, right? So let's talk about first. Just when do we want to use it? So we talked about cover usage. If we want to ult when the whole enemy team, or when there's a bunch of people out in the open where there's no cover, right? If we were to ult when both of the enemy players here are in the room over there, well then they can just duck around the corner, and then we don't do anything with their ultimate because it has a charge up time. But if we were to ult when they're both standing right here, well now where are they going to go by the time we charge up our ultimate, right? They're very far out in the open. So we want to use our ultimate when they're out in the open and they can't really get away from our ultimate, right? And that's mainly the situation in which we'd be going for ultimate. So for example, when Pharah's up in the sky and she has no cover anywhere, then that would be where we can use it as well, just because she can't get away from it at all.
Too slow.
Right? Moving on to how do we survive through it, right? You mainly have three ways that you go for your ultimate, right? You have a protection ultimate, where you can basically just sit behind your tanks and shields, right? And then they can tank for you. And this is going to be a very low risk ult, because you very low chance of dying through this, but then at the same time it's also going to be a low reward ult, where you're not going to get a ton of value because you're going to be stuck shooting at shields and tanks, and then it's unlikely to do a ton. So that's a low risk, low reward, right? You also have taking like a very long distance with your ultimate, where like we can stand all the way back here, and this only works though if they don't have things that can contest you at a range, right? So like if they're not running snipers or anything that can test us, if we're ulting from all the way over here, they might not be able to kill us in time before we kill them, right?
Yeah.
And then finally you have off angling, which last time did we talk about off angling?
Yep.
Yep. So you have off angling and flanking, right? Did I discuss the difference between the two or no?
Just a
Yeah, you did.
Yep. So yeah. So you have off angling and flanking, which you can do with high noon as well, which will mean that you get around their tanks and shields. So that'll mean that now you have a kind of a medium to high reward, but then also kind of a medium to high. Like it really depends upon the situation, but it really depending upon the off angling, it can be a low to high risk, right? So that's going to be the one where you get probably the highest amount of value out of it, but then also it's going to maybe be one of the riskier ones to go for, right? So just gauging the situation. So that's how you get it off. Right, we want to make sure actually looking for situations to use it. I'd also recommend just trying to go for it more often, because you're not going to learn how to use it if you never use it, right? You learn from mistakes, and if you're not making, if you're not making any mistakes, you're not going to learn, right? So, moving on, let's see what else is there. Thinking. That's it. You can probably go ahead and get into queue. I think there's like maybe one more thing that I'll think of while we're waiting here. I'm just trying to remember what it was. Make sure we're not going for long flanks in the middle of fights, right? Like in that last fight, for example, when we went for high noon, we did go for like kind of a flank around. And if you remember, when I discussed the difference between a flank and an off angle, a flank is long and or dangerous, and you don't want to go for long flanks in the middle of fights where you're just going to be out of the fight for a really long time, and then that means by the time you're doing anything, your team's losing the fight, right? besides that, we never took any high grounds, and then
I got a
when we
game.
did. Okay, yeah, sounds good. I'll spectate you in a moment. We never took any high grounds, and then when we did, we pretty much dropped immediately. So make sure we're taking high grounds. Last time I would imagine we discussed high grounds being great, yeah, being something that came up
I
in
like to take
positioning.
high ground a lot when I'm playing soldier. Specifically.
Same thing applies with McCree too.
Back to you.
All right.
I'm spectating.
Traveling to Eichenwald. Attackers incoming. in
Teleporter
30
online.
seconds.
Order will be restored.
This is the hometown of my master, Valkyrie. He was born here. He died here.
Yeah, usually it's a good idea to just go for a fire strike into their spawn, and then you can just back up immediately
Yeah.
afterwards. Alright. Just don't push too far forwards. Yeah, like that's fine.
Attackers incoming.
Alright, because then we just get a 6% on our ult. Sometimes that can be even higher too.
Don't worry, my friends. I am your shield.
Like, go for fire strikes off a cooldown. Just pretty much every time it comes up, you want to be fire striking because it's gonna be a really good source of ult charge, especially. Alright, we didn't talk about Ryan last time, right?
No.
I think there's a lot of stuff we're gonna need to discuss.
Who did the Nano?
Reinhardt, and then he died. So with our shield, make sure we're just not shielding forever. Put it down to recharge it, because it doesn't recharge if it's up, right? So watch the shield health and make sure we're putting it down when it needs to be recharged. Alright, besides that, make sure we're not just holding up shield for everyday random spam damage. I guess that's a long topic. We'll discuss that after the game is done. One thing I would say is maybe look to swing a bit more when people are closer to you, right? Is actually look to swing and do damage, because that is what Reinhardt likes to do. Is he likes to go in and swing and do damage.
Yeah.
Okay, make sure letting our shield recharge, right? We're not just leaving up when there's only 500 left on it.
I'm gonna rest the shield up. Yeah. Oh, I missed that.
Okay, there it seemed as though we weren't aware that there are people on the right side on point, so they're like half their team was in on our side and we just didn't seem to notice, right? So make sure we're paying attention to that. Just awareness of paying attention to our environment. Again, right, we didn't seem to notice until Reinhardt was like right on top of us, so make sure we're listening and watching.
Yep.
Alright. Alright, shield 2 times less, swing 2 times more. Basically at the moment, right? We're kind of shield botting. Reinhardt is not a shield bot character. If you're just going to hard shield, you're better off on a character like Sigma or Orisa, who can shield and shoot and use abilities. Reinhardt cannot shield and shoot and use abilities. He can only shield or swing, right? Or use abilities, right? So make sure we're looking to swing much more often, and then shielding when shield is needed, which we'll discuss after this. And then that's how we do things and get value on Reinhardt.
Yep.
Okay, make sure we're dropping our shield right. 400 HP. We don't want to just kind of leave it up at 400 HP and then not have it for when it's needed. And remembering we're also looking for ultimate this fight, right? We did hold on to it last fight.
Yep.
So just there's a lot of ways we can get this off. We might talk about it.
I just don't want the Ryan to block it. Uh-oh.
Went a little bit too aggressive off of only shattering 2 people, right? Remembering that if we're only shattering 2 people, there's the other 4 people who can contest us and shoot at us, right?
Yep.
On top of that, probably go for the fire strike before we're going for the charge, right? That way we just get in some extra damage and we're able to maybe secure some more kills.
Yep. Oh, we just got decimated. Okay.
Good idea to wait for your team.
Where does it
Okay,
hurt?
now we can start walking.
Don't worry, my friend. I have your shield.
Okay, make sure we're going in and swinging and doing things because we're just kind of sitting and chilling at the moment. Okay, awareness, Reinhardt and Reaper, we could hear them behind us. We could, like, especially the big one, right? We can hear, we could hear them shooting and swinging and charging behind us. Turn up your normal volume if needed. Turn down music volume if you have it up high. And then, do you have surround sound on your headset or in game?
Yep.
Yep. So, you know, and then on top of that, it's just make sure we're actively paying attention, right? We're listening and for footsteps, gunshots, and whatnot. Nice kill.
Uh-huh.
I need healing. I require aid. Ow! Need healing.
Okay, as a reminder, we do have our ultimate again this fight, right? So we're looking for that here.
Heroes never die.
Unfortunate timing. Oh my god.
So they're kind of isolated ourselves, went off on our own, right? Which means that our team can't support us, and then we also just kind of made it. I guess big thing we don't want to be shattering when Reinhardt's like right next to us and charging, because then he's just gonna cancel it, right? So we want to make sure we're paying attention to that.
No. Represent. No.
Okay, so far we haven't like charged at all, right? Probably look for charges more often. We'll discuss that a little bit when we get into training range here and talk on Reinhardt.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with my head right now. I'm like, I charge a lot more than this. Like, I solo charge people into certain points, but I don't know what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, good. So I'm still streaming still if you want to take a look. So let's talk about a couple of things. First off, let's talk about Reinhardt's shield, right, and how it wants to be used, right? And just also his aggression is a big thing, right? So shield usage, right? You have basically you have multiple things that you shield against, right? You shield when you're blocking abilities and when you're blocking ultimates. You shield when you are low or your team is low around you, right? You shield when you are pushing forwards and taking space or backing up and giving up space. And you can also shield when you know there's a ton of damage coming in, such as like when your team is grabbed and you know that you need to keep your shield up to keep them alive, right? So those are all situations where you should be shielding, right? Where you should not be shielding is when you're just shielding everyday random spam damage, right? So you just have like, you know, a McCree shooting at your shield, right? And the whole team shooting your shield. That's not a time where shield is needed, right?
Yep.
Because in that situation, you're just letting them whittle it down when it's not for anything important, right? On top of that, when your shield is low, make sure that we're dropping it, because a lot of times we would basically most of our gameplay was just this, where we're just kind of shield and that's it. Our shield would be at like 400 HP and we just kind of keep it up, whereas it doesn't start recharging until it's after it's down, right? So we want to make sure we're dropping it when it's low and needs to be healed, and then on top of that, make sure we're not shield botting, right? We're not just kind of sitting around and shielding, right? Because Reinhardt doesn't get value that way, right? Alternatively, let's talk about, you know, how you should be playing aggression-wise, right? You want to be getting aggressive at the beginning of fights, right? Because you want to be getting aggressive when you have health and when you have shields, right? Because if you don't have health and you don't have shields, then you're not going to be able to push in and get aggressive. Because if we push in without any shields, well, now we're just going to get melted because we have no way to push and no way to back, right? Or if we push in without health, again, we're going to get melted. So we want to be getting aggressive when we do have those things, and a lot of times it's going to be at the very beginning of fights is when we have those things, right? Whereas a lot of our gameplay was just, we would just kind of sit around and we shield, and we'd sit around and we shield, and then maybe we'd fire strike, and then we'd sit around and we shield, right? And that was just our entire gameplay, right? So we want to make sure we're going for that more often, right? Next, let's talk about charging, right? So charging, you know, big thing is just go for charges more, as we didn't really use it a lot, but you want to make sure you're going for safe charges. Most of the time, you're not going to want to go for super long or medium range charges, because if you go for a super long time, basically you're unable to put up your shield and stop yourself from moving the entire time, and it makes it super easy for people to stun you and shoot at you. So alternatively, if we are like right next to somebody and we charge, like if we're right here and we charge, we pretty much get out of the charge immediately, right? To where we're just able to put our shield back up and stop them from shooting at us. So we go for pretty close. Whenever we're going for charges, we are going to want to go for like close range charges, or other situations where like they don't know the charge is coming or whatnot. So just make sure charging more often, fire striking more often. Right, moving on, let's discuss Shatter, right? Shatter, there's a lot of different ways that you can use it. You can shatter when Reinhardt's shield is broken, when Reinhardt is dead, when you can just time for when he's gonna drop it, and you know, wait for him to drop it. You can shatter people when they're around his shield, right, and he's not blocking them. You can look to get around his shield by like going on an off angle or a flank. So you have a lot of different options, right? For Fire Strike, there's also other techy things you can do with it to get to land shatter. So, you know, things to think about. Moving on, let's talk about choke points in No Man's Land. Have we discussed choke points in No Man's Land before?
Nope.
Nope. Are you familiar with either of the terms?
Nope.
Nope. Okay, so that's fine. Let's discuss them. So, first, let's just leave this, and then we'll go over to the Eichenwald so we can see it here. So, over on Eichenwald, so a choke point, while I'm getting over here, I'll just kind of explain it. So, a choke point is essentially a tiny little tight space that acts as a funnel, right? Now, in this tiny little tight space, if the enemy team walks through it, they're going to all be funneling themselves all into a tiny little ball, and that means that if your team shoots into that tiny little space, they take a ton of damage, right? Because when they're all spread out, it's harder to damage them all, but if they're all in this tiny little space, so for example, this archway is a choke point, right? If they're all in this tiny little space, we can funnel all our damage to this, and they're going to take a ton of damage, right? Now, if we hold up here, which is what we were doing to start off especially, if we hold up here, well now, for the enemy team, right, if the enemy team pushes at us, they don't need to go through the choke point, right? In fact, we need to back up, we need to go through this choke point, right? So we are in fact not making them go through the disadvantage, but we are also ourselves going through the disadvantage, right? The same exact thing if we're holding in the middle of the choke point, and then if we're holding at the behind the choke, like right behind the choke point, it really depends upon the choke point. Some are longer than others. If it's a long choke point, then you can hold at the end of it, but even like right here, for example, where this is a pretty small one, if we held right here, they may not even need to walk through the choke to shoot at us, right? Which means that they don't have a reason to walk through it, right? But this is still better than holding up front. Right. Now let's also discuss No Man's Land, as No Man's Land is very similar. No Man's Land is any long stretch of space where there's no cover at all, right? That would be something like this, right? And on most payload maps, it's going to be the entire path of the payload is No Man's Land, right? As an example, right? So here, this is No Man's Land, where if you're in the middle of this, there's very, very little cover to use, right? Pretty much, not a whole lot, right? So same thing, right? If we are holding up here, right, at the front of No Man's Land, well, that means that if we need to back up, we're backing up through No Man's Land, right? Which means that we take a whole lot of damage that's unnecessary, right? If we're holding in the middle, same thing. But if we, for example, held at the end, well, now if we hold on this corner, well, now we get the advantage of the choke, the advantage of the No Man's Land, right? And they have to walk through the entire thing where we spam at them the whole time. And then if they go right side, then we can rotate right side, and then boom, they are now in another choke, right? So that's how to use choke points in No Man's Land properly. Also, but keep in mind that our teams not, especially like if they're really low ranked, they're not gonna understand this. So if they're all holding up there, go and hold up there with them, right? Jane, a Overwatch League coach, said, you know, if one person's doing something stupid, that's called feeding. If 6 people are doing something stupid, that's called a strategy. So basically that means that if our whole team's up in a stupid spot, go and be there and be stupid with them, right? Instead of just being off on your own, right? Because then we'd be accomplishing nothing. So that's essentially how to do that. You can look to go ahead and get into another queue there, I think.
I think I'm gonna queue comp this time.
Okay, we only have 20 minutes left in the session, so if we take the last 10 minutes to do the main points review and wrap up, then 10 minutes isn't enough for a queue in a comp game. Just so we are kind of aware of the time frame here. Okay, let me see. Is there anything else to discuss? Thinking. So on Reinhardt, I don't know. I didn't see us doing it like a lot, but maybe we did a little bit. But just make sure that just a little bit of a swinging tech. If we are aiming here, right, we hit one person. Whereas if we were to instead swing our camera like left to right, we can hit two people at the same time, right? So whenever you're swinging, you're gonna want to swing your camera back and forth, and this means that you can hit multiple people per swing. So the very easy way to do this is to swing along with the way your hammer is going. So hammer goes left, we go left. Hammer goes right, we go right. So left, right, left, right. It's just very easy and smooth. Right now, with using this, you can basically be hitting people all around you. We can be doing a complete 180 and hitting multiple people at the same time, right? So it's just really easy way to do more damage, right? And let me know when you get in game, by the way. Okay. Other tacky thing would maybe be Fire Strike, where you can, because Fire Strike has a charge up time, you can start it around the corner and then bring it around, right? So you press the button here and then drag it around, and it would look like that, and then that means that we don't have to be out in the open as long. And then that is pretty much it for now. Just kind of waiting on you to get into a game here.
Double kill.
All right.
And then are you going for tank or DPS here?
I'll go DPS here.
All right. So then, guess did you want to get a replay code? I don't know how long it's going to be till you get a game here.
Yeah, sure. I sent it.
All right, let me get that up then. All right, just let me know when you get into a game.
Traveling to
All right.
Mumbai.
Hello.
Greetings.
I've got you.
Oh, so here, just make sure you're trying to keep out of range of the hog hook, right? He can only hook 20 meters away, so we want to make sure we're trying to stick outside of that 20-meter distance. That way we're not getting hooked, right? Especially when we don't have a range on our damage, right? Our damage doesn't have fall off. So we just keeping a little bit further away from
Not
these
done
guys.
yet. I will not wait.
Okay, here, very nice, but we kind of are slow on the to notice that they're going right side. So make sure we're paying attention. Usually a really good spot here that we can go is we can kind of sit like over here, and then this gives us visibility in pretty much every direction.
Choke point. Yeah, and you can just funnel a lot of damage.
Yeah, so yeah, again, this is a choke point in here. Yeah, you got that right. Choke point up here. This is kind of a mix between a no man's land and a choke point, right? So here, this is a really good angle because we can see under, we can fly up a little bit and see top, and we can fly up a little bit and see right side, and then we can peek left a little bit and see main. So basically, we can see like which direction they're coming from, like from this position, right? And then if they come to main, or if they go to the top or the bottom, we can shoot them very easily from here. And then to start off, we can be over here, but then if we can also see like which direction they go, and then like boot concussion over and then contest. But here we're just not in a very good angle, just because we're not paying attention to where they're at. And then now we kind of have an okay angle on them, but not the best. Yeah, very nice.
Some assistance.
Double kill.
My thing.
I'm trying to wait here. I probably shouldn't do this.
So for what purpose would we be waiting there?
To get a flank off,
Mm,
or like a small flank.
yeah, so I'd probably say that it's not going to find you a ton of value in comparison to just getting in spam
Yeah,
damage and
and
getting your ultimate, for example, here. Like when we're so close to our ultimate, we'd probably find more value out of getting our ultimate online and to have it for this fight than doing a surprise, woohoo, I'm here, right?
yeah, and in my head there, I'd wanted to like get one pick and then concussion out. That's what I was gonna do.
I am empowered.
Again, staying a little within range of his ultimate or of his hook there, so just watching for that.
Tell me how this
Yep.
feels.
Right. Decent barrage. Though one thing I would say to be careful of is ulting when people know that you're there. A lot of times when you go for your ultimates, you want to ult when nobody knows where you are, right? That means that way people just can't shoot at you and then you die, right? So for basically, for example, right, if right there when they all saw us, it probably would have been very easy for like Hanzo to headshot us and Hog to hook us and whatnot, right? We take a lot of damage. Whereas if it's a surprise, then they have a lot less time to react to us and we can kill them pretty easily, right?
Yep.
Okay, here, probably don't
I
need
fall
to,
off. Yeah, I started to
yeah,
fall off.
so here, if we just like sit down here, we can basically have a straight path to shooting in their spawn. We can just shoot from here, or even if we crouch up here, we can still shoot and see there. But here, this is probably unnecessary that we push this far forwards, and then also it doesn't really give us that great of angles too.
Clearing the area.
Hey, sitting low to the ground at the moment, probably don't need to do that. We probably should be up in the air or on the high ground to probably be better than just kind of sitting on the ground, right? Give us better positioning and whatnot.
Enemy seen.
I got it again.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, just make sure we're a lot higher in the sky. We're not being very high there, and that means that we end up taking a lot more damage because we're not putting a distance between ourselves and them. I'm spectating you. We might end up leaving partly into this game though, and it depends on how fast it goes.
Okay.
Hey, peace be upon you.
Let's shoot for a new high score.
Attack commences in 30 seconds.
All systems operational. T-Round ready for combat. LOL. Think you can keep up with me?
Check this out.
Five, four, three, two, one. Attack commencing. Capture objective A.
Like cutting through silk.
And make sure reloading, like anytime we just have the time to, right? Like right there, probably just after we shot the venom mine, just would have been a good time to reload. Yeah, there, when you see Widow's off on her own like that, just very isolated, probably would have been just a good idea to even dash in after her, right? Like even if our dash wasn't in range to damage her, just dashing it closer to her probably would have been a good idea. Okay, dash through
Oh,
the
no.
brick. Yeah.
Ah!
Just remember to use dash as a finisher, right, to finish off kills.
Join me.
Maybe I will.
Thanks, McCree.
Okay, pretty nice, right? Just a little bit slow on the dashes. Just make sure we're just getting into the habit of doing that. Right, like, you know, when someone's like half HP, just right-click dash through them, right? Like, it's gonna take a large. I think at the moment, you're underestimating the amount of damage you're gonna do with a right-click dash. So just keep in mind you're gonna be doing a whole lot of damage with a right-click dash. So right-click through that, or right-click dash through them when they're like half HP, right?
Nim, this will help. Push on.
Oh, let's break it tanked!
You're powered up. Get in here. Enemy contact.
Tunnel back at you.
Activating self-destruct sequence.
Yeah, very nice.
Activating.
Hey, pretty solid. Quick trivia.
Three.
When you have a nano boost blade, how many shots does it take to kill somebody? Or like kind of what's your combo to kill somebody?
Dash slash.
Okay, so just that's good that you understand that. Just make sure, like for example, on the Junkrat that we're doing that, because we look at this where we kind of slash him, and then we walk away like we killed him, and then we come back and slash him again. Whereas we probably could have just slash dashed and then be done with a kill, right? So just understanding that. Besides that, pretty pretty solid for the most part. And then I'm streaming if you want to take a look, and we'll just go over the strengths, weaknesses, main points, do a quick review, and wrap it up from there. So let's see. We touched on Ryan, we touched on Genji a tiny bit. Besides that, we went over McCree, and that is it. Yeah. So I guess.
Do you think that my Genji has improved since the last time?
Again, unfortunately, like I coach a lot of people, so like I don't particularly remember, like especially if we only did one session. Sometimes I'll remember like after we do multiple ones with people, but like if it was 2.5 weeks ago or something like that we did a last session, then I don't particularly remember how good your Genji was last time. Sorry about that. But,
it's okay. It's okay.
yeah. So maybe question mark, but not too sure, unfortunately. But yeah, moving on. So main points. Let's start off with abilities, or talking about strengths and weaknesses, right? Starting off with abilities, just make sure we're landing our flashbang on McCree. Over to, let's see, what else we play? Reinhardt. Make sure we're fire striking as off a cooldown as often as possible. Make sure we're charging more often and going for them at close ranges. Shield. Lot of things on shield management. Make sure we're not holding it up all the time and only shield botting, making sure that we are not holding it up when it needs to be recharging, and then also make sure we're only shielding for specific things that need you to, such as when there's a high amount of damage, when you're pushing in, when you're backing out, when you are low, when your team is low, and when you're blocking abilities and ultimates, right? On from there, let's see, we had Genji left, and then Genji just, understanding that when you right-click dash through somebody, right? When they're if you hit all headshots, right, that's an insta kill, right? Right-click dash, right? Now, if you don't hit all headshots, let's say we hit all body shots. Let's look how much damage this is gonna do, right? Right-click. Oh, that guy's already low, right? Right-click dash, right? Does quite a bit of damage. We had a melee there, right? It does a lot of damage. So if somebody just takes a little bit of damage, like let's say they take that, right? We can just right-click dash through that and melee at the end of it, and we get the kill, right?
Wait, so how much damage does right-click dash do again?
Yeah, so I mean, it depends on what you're hitting. Headshots, body shots. So body shots does a round that looks like 150-ish, right? Headshots, that's gonna be over 200, right? So we can get like a one-shot combo there, right? And then if we melee at the end, we're doing even more damage. So right-click dash, melee does a decent amount of damage, right? So just looking to do more, get more kills with that. And then besides that, just that seems to be pretty much it on the Genji, right? So overall, probably say on Reinhardt, abilities was a very big thing. On the other two characters, it wasn't. So that's a little bit different between the characters. Was on Genji and McCree, I'd probably say abilities were like a. I'd probably say McCree was a low to medium, Genji was a medium, and then Reinhardt it was a medium high priority, right, for all of them. So it's just a little bit different on each character. Genji, so moving on to ultimates, Genji ults, just making sure that we're getting the understanding of slash dash mechanics, and then McCree actually using her ultimate, right, we're now holding on to it. That was a big, massive thing with it. Then we also talked about making sure that we're using, 3 different ways we stay alive are far away, flank or off angle, and then finally using cover, and then also make sure we're using it when they're all out in the open. And then finally shatter, just make sure it's kind of same thing, don't hold on to it, and then make sure we're getting more value out of it, right, is the big thing. And you can look to get around their shields in multiple different ways, right? Overall, I'd say again, this is slightly different per character. Genji, I'd probably say low to medium priority. McCree, probably say more so a medium or medium high priority, and then on Reinhardt that's probably going to be at like a low to medium priority, right? So it's different across the characters. Now moving on, general mechanics. I think mechanics on the characters, just general mechanics needs a bit, just
Justice
make sure we're
sending
hitting our shots.
expenses, sir.
Besides that, let's see what else is there. Probably, I don't think we talked a ton about mechanics, and then Reinhardt mechanics isn't a thing either. So I'd probably say mechanics was pretty low, so low to medium priority on mechanics. Now positioning, we talked about that on a bunch of different characters, right? Make sure you're using choke points correctly. Make sure you're using no man's land correctly. Make sure you're using cover, not standing out in the open. Make sure we're taking high grounds and not just sitting on the low grounds, right? Because we didn't do that a ton. Make sure we're not going for flanks in the middle of fights, but then we are going for flanks and off angles, when needed and appropriate. Right, so overall, I'd probably say positioning was a pretty big thing across all three characters, right? So, then therefore, or not really on Genji. Genji we did pretty good with it, but Reinhardt and McCree. So therefore, I'd probably say that goes up to like a medium high priority, right? Moving on to awareness, right? Awareness, paying attention to your health bar and requesting healing when we need it. Make sure that we are paying attention to our ultimates, so we're not just holding on to it and we see when we have it. Make sure we're paying attention to where's my team at, where's the enemy team at, right? And what is everyone else up to? Paying attention to kill feed and when fights are won and lost, right? So 1 to 2, as a reminder, 1 to 2 is an advantage or a disadvantage. 2 to 3 is a won or lost fight. When we've won a fight, we get super aggressive. When we lost a fight, we look to get out if possible, or if we can't, we let them kill us. We don't stagger ourselves and just not be grouped up with our team. And then on top of that, use ults in won or lost fights, and then make sure we're not walking in when we don't have teammates with us, and make sure we're not just staying in too long when we don't have teammates with us, right?
Yep.
From there, make sure we're keeping up good audio awareness and paying attention to our surroundings, as there were like a lot of times where people would be like behind us and we wouldn't notice. So overall, I'd probably say awareness goes to a medium high as well, right? And then that is pretty much it. So I guess to go over main points, I think this is gonna be a little bit different per character. So let's just go over them individually. Though you might need to like when you go back, you might want to like into the recording, just keep in mind that you might want to, just because it might get a little confusing here talking about the 3 different characters. But McCree, right? Let's see, what did we discuss? We discussed probably number 1 was going to be positioning. Number 2 is going to be awareness. Number 3 was going to be ultimate usage. 4 was going to be your mechanics, and then 5 is going to be ability usage, right? That's how it works on McCree. Genji, we didn't talk a ton about Genji, so I might, on Genji, let's see, I'd probably say pretty much it's just positioning, then awareness, then after that, I'd probably say ability usage, then ult usage, then mechanics on Genji. And then Reinhardt, it was probably going to be, instead of positioning number 1, I'd probably say it's awareness/aggression is number 1, right? Where we want to just make sure we're getting aggressive and actually doing things and accomplishing things. And then also just your awareness, because those are connected and feed into each other. And then 2 would be positioning. Actually, even I don't even know if a position would be number 2. I'd probably say even above positioning, I would say ability usage came in at number 2. And then 3 would be positioning, and then 4 would be ultimate usage. And then on Reinhardt, there's no mechanics, so the mechanics is not a category, right? So do you have any questions about anything that we've gone over, or just anything else in the game?
Nope.
All right, man. Well, that is pretty much it then, so I'll just...
Oh, actually, I do have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, out of all the characters that you've seen me play today, what do you think is my strongest character?
Yeah, so I'd probably say Reinhardt was the weakest. Probably say Genji was the strongest character, which I saw. So Genji was definitely the least amount of mistakes, and we seem to be the most understand him as a character the most. And then McCree is in the middle.
Yeah, I think I have like 40 hours on Genji, and then on Ryan I have like an hour and a half.
Which also goes to show you, like, the point in which I was making, like, last time of just, spreading yourself thin can mean that you don't, like, if you're really good at Genji, that's really because of the playtime, right? And then...
Because I'm pretty new, like I said before.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I do play the game a lot, though.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. So I'll